Welcome to our YouTube channel. We're so glad that you found us. Please enjoy this inspiring interview with Stephan Bodian. He was interviewed by Anja Janssen. If you would like some more information about Stephan, please visit his website at stephanbodian.org. For more information on our non-dual community and the free resources we provide, we invite you to visit our website at awakening-together.org. We hope you enjoy the satsang and hope to see you live in our sanctuary.
Thank you, Reverend Shauna. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you. Welcome, everyone from Awakening Together and friends of Stephan that are here. And welcome, Stephan, of course. I will make read a short introduction about Stephan, short bio. Stephan Bodian is a teacher in the non-dual wisdom tradition of Zen, Dzogchen, and Advaita Vedanta. Since 2007, he's been offering the annual School for Awakening, a multi-month intensive program in spiritual realization and awakened living. Stephan is also a licensed psychotherapist. He brings a deep appreciation of the impact of early conditioning on the process of spiritual unfolding and offers individual counseling and mentoring in the psycho-spiritual integration. Trained as a Buddhist monk, he spent many years studying with Advaita Master Jean Klein, and in 2001 he received Dharma transmission, which is authorization to teach, from Adya Shanti. His books include Wake Up Now, which is this book, Beyond Mindfulness, and the best-selling guidebook Meditation for Dummies. So Stephan, would you like to add something to this bio?
No, that's lovely. Thank you, Anja.
Okay. And I want to point out, if you are interested and want to know more about Stephan, he has a great website with a lot of free resources, meditations, videos, and of course his books. And as a preparation for this satsang, I read this book, Wake Up Now, and I really enjoyed reading it, because it's not only a guide, it says a guide to the journey of spiritual awakening, but it's beautifully intertwined with Stephan's experiences. A lot of anecdotes, they're not literally anecdotes, but your own experiences are really involved, really used in this book. That makes it a really valuable, and it's it really speaks to me. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Anja. Yeah, no, I'm glad.
Okay.
I think it's important to bring in some personal experiences, to bring it down to earth and at a heart level, as well as simply a more abstract, descriptive level. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, shall we start our conversation?
Yeah.
What shall we talk about?
Yeah, well, let's talk about awakening, and it's always, I find it always helpful to hear about the path someone else has walked or is walking. So maybe you could talk a little bit about parts of your path to awakening and anything that is alive for you to share right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm in the process. I've just begun writing another book, finally, which is the fruition of these many years of teaching the school. Every year, I amassed a lot of, material, I would say. Material meaning not material from anywhere else, but material from my own experience that I was offering in the school over those years. And I'm starting to bring it together. And part of that, like in the other book that you mentioned, will be stories from my own experience. So I've been reflecting on some of my experiences. So one of the things I often say is that, what brings us to this path, the journey of awakening, is often suffering, And I think it's important for us to understand that and appreciate that, and also normalize that, because my first Zen teacher told me a number of times, he said, monasteries are places for desperate people.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And I think it's true, coming to this kind of thing, you have to be really driven to want to wake up, you have to be somewhat desperate. And I think I was pretty desperate from an unhappy childhood, and desperate to escape from the suffering that I was experiencing, which led me to Zen, in particular, and to the point that I eventually became a Zen monk, which must have meant I was really desperate, and devoted myself for many years to this kind of wholehearted, single-minded, one might even say fundamentalist practice that I was doing, wearing the robes and doing the rituals and going through that whole process, which I think I had to run to its course. I had to let it run its course to fully complete, you could say, the karma of that, and finally leave that form behind, and then explore other ways of being, and in the process discovered other teachings, Dzogchen in particular, as I mentioned, and finally meeting Jean Klein, a teacher of Advaita Vedanta, a French-German teacher of Advaita Vedanta. I think I just wanted to normalize that. Often we're driven to this path, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with us. I think it takes that kind of dedication, wholeheartedness.
Yeah, when I read your experiences in the book, you had a really wholehearted dedication to this path, I think.
Yeah, I was definitely devoted, and then I was just also reflecting on this for the book. After years of doing Zen, I explored other approaches. I explored the men's movement. I became a psychotherapist. I left that kind of wholehearted, single-minded awakening path, and then discovered Jean Klein. And when I met Jean Klein, I wasn't looking for a teacher, but a friend who had been a Buddhist practitioner introduced me to Jean. And what I realized after meeting Jean, I went to several of his workshops, and then I got to meet him in person, face to face. And to me, he was the embodiment of everything I had been studying and everything I aspired to realize. I could tell, it was very direct. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't theoretical. He wasn't a Buddhist. He wasn't talking Buddhist language, but he was the embodiment, And for me, the meetings with the teacher have been extremely important. I think for some people, you read the books and the philosophy appeals to you and you do the practices, but maybe a teacher isn't important. For me, I had some very powerful encounters with teachers, and that meant a great deal to me somehow, that face-to-face, person-to-person encounter with someone who embodied the truth really was transformative for me. Suzuki Roshi, I met Suzuki Roshi in very intimate gatherings. We would gather. We sat in this converted garage together, and we met in someone's living room. And here was this Zen master. There I am. In this room with him. It was very powerful, and other teachers as well, and then particularly Suzuki Roshi and Jean Klein had a very powerful impact on me, and then Adyashanti. So even though we only do Zoom nowadays because of COVID and because we're scattered all over the world, still even on Zoom, I think we can have an intimate encounter with another person, and that can really light that fire in us, you know?
And what was it in Jean Klein that lighted your fire? That did light your fire?
Well, with Jean, it was really the recognition that there was no one there,
Okay.
that there really wasn't a separate person there. And, you know, I had met some Buddhist teachers who had, were part of august lineages, you know, who had all these pedigrees and transmissions, and they were full of themselves, you know, full of ego, full of attachment, full of self-image. And then I met this guy, Jean Klein, who wasn't a Buddhist, and it was clear to me that he had, you know, and all these teachers were very interested in me as their student, you know. I was this bright young guy, and they wanted me to further their lineage or, you know, help them in some way. And I met Jean Klein, and he seemed totally uninterested in doing anything with me. I mean, he was very present, just very beautiful and very, very, he used to say, in your absence is your presence. So there was this absence, which was a profound presence, and something about that really touched me deeply and also lit up that very absent presence, you could say, that full being presence in me, you know?
Yeah,
It was just there, you know? In fact, I remember the event. We were preparing for some kind of lunch, and we were shucking peas together, peeling peas and opening them up, you know, into a pot, and we were just doing this in silence. And just in the silence, there was, you know, profound transmission that was happening. I thought, whoa, I never experienced this before. So that was very beautiful, you know.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I watched one interview with Jean Klein on the internet, and exactly the quote you were mentioning, in your absence is present. He was saying that in that, maybe he says it in all his interviews, I don't know, but in that interview he also said that, and that immediately jumped out on me as well, that this is, yeah. And it also reminds me of a quote I was contemplating lately. It is something like, when all mental activity ceases, that you are that which is. So for me, it more or less points to the same thing. So when the mind is totally relaxed and absent, you could say, then your true nature is present. It is always present, of course, but then it's obvious.
Beautiful. Yes, it's revealed, huh?
Yeah.
Comes to the foreground. Yes, beautiful. I agree.
And you were talking about silence and silent transmission. Of course, it's not something easy to talk about because it's happening between the words, you could say. But is there anything more you can say about it? How it works on you or on other people, this silence?
Yeah, again, not much to say because, as you say, it's happening in silence. But being, consciousness is what we are, but most of the time it's obscured by the thoughts and the words and the concepts, huh? It's not obliterated, of course, it's just obscured. So in that silence between the words, it's like you can listen for the silence. In fact, when I studied with Jean Klein, the transmission was the most powerful in the silence. I would go to the meditation hall on a retreat, for example, and he would often come early, just sit in the silence. It felt like the teachings were the clearest in the silence. Or with Anja Shanti, I would often actually leave the lecture hall when he was teaching and go out and sit by the fountain and listen to the water, the sound of the water, rather than the words, So, they say the trees and the birds and the flowers and the sky are transmitting the Dharma constantly, huh? Through the simplicity of being, huh? So to be attuned to that deeper level of transmission, huh? Of presence in the silence. Of course, that's what meditation is, an invitation into silent presence, huh?
Yeah. Okay, you were talking about your path to awakening, and in your book you describe a moment, you call it a moment out of time, when your first awakening happened. Could you, try to describe it for anyone who hasn't read your book or hasn't heard you talk before?
My awakening, as many awakenings do, happens spontaneously, So this gives me an opportunity to talk a little about awakening, You can't make awakening happen,
You're muted, Stephen.
I'm not sure why I'm having
Oh, it's okay.
plug the external microphone. Oops. You hear me okay? You hear me okay now?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
Having difficulty hearing me?
Sometimes the sound is off suddenly.
Okay, I'll try to put it back in again. Yeah, I have a very high-speed connection, but it said the internet connection is unstable. So anyway, let's do what we can.
Yeah.
You hear me now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I was talking a little about awakening. It isn't the cookie cutter approach. You can't go A, B, C, D, and then wake up, But as I often say, you can make yourself awakening prone, just like you make yourself accident prone, by sitting quietly, resting in awareness, which we'll talk about later, listening to the teachings, inquiring into the nature of reality and to the nature of who am I really, that Atma Vichara, the self-inquiry, and spending time with kindred spirits who are also on the same path, going to a school like the School for Awakening, or going to satsang, or going to webinars. These make us awakening prone, but awakening happens in this moment out of time. Everyone's awakening is slightly different, but very often it just kind of creeps up on us and occurs to us when we least expect it. So in my own case, I was on a retreat with Jean Klein. I had to leave for some reason to take care of some business. And while I was in the car, something he had said, the seeker is the sought. These pointers, these sayings that come from a deep realization, and because they come from this deep knowing, can elicit that knowing in us. So the seeker is the sought. The looker is what he or she is looking for. In other words, you are what you seek, essentially. It's not out there, it's in here. The one who's looking is what's being looked for. That pointer went through my mind as I was driving in my car. Fortunately, I was able to continue driving without any incident. And suddenly, everything turned inside out. Reality turned inside out. Who I thought I was, the one who was driving, suddenly, I suddenly realized that wasn't who I was. I was the vastness, the global awareness, the space, the vast, limitless space of awareness in which this little one here was driving through, you see. So that shift, that often I call it a figure ground shift, huh? You think you're one thing, but suddenly you realize you are the space, huh? And who you take yourself to be, this body mind, is just another content within this vast, awake, aware space that you really are. So that suddenly occurred to me in a heartbeat, huh? In a moment out of time, and it never left, huh? I am this global, limitless awareness, space in which everything, life is unfolding, huh? So that shift is the shift that we're talking about in awakening, a shift in what I often describe as the locus of awareness, huh? And the locus of identity. We take ourselves to be this, body, mind, and everything is happening to me. Suddenly we realize who we really are is this global awareness, and everything is happening in me, huh? But not to this separate self. This separate self is another arising, another content in the context, global awareness, huh? So that was the awakening. Very simple, very direct.
And did in that moment all attachment to the separate self fall away?
Not for a lifetime, no, in the moment.
Okay, in a moment, okay.
Yes. No,
And then it sneaked back in.
Yeah, generally these insights, no matter how powerful, do not free us from all of our attachments and identities at all. I've talked to many people who've awakened, including teachers, and it rarely happens all at once like that. It's very rare. So I think that's important to demystify awakening. I think there are a lot of myths and misunderstandings about awakening. If it didn't happen, all at once and completely, and nothing, no trace of ego came back, it wasn't a real awakening. Not at all. It could have been a very powerful and life-changing awakening, but we do have the opportunity, the invitation to keep returning to it, to keep coming back, refreshing it, and then using it, you could say. I would prefer people not chat while we're talking and save the questions until later. Is that okay? Because it just flashes in front of my eyes. And write down your question and let's talk later. We hopefully you'll have plenty of time, right?
Yeah, we can. We will serve some time at the end for questions. Sure. Yeah.
So that'd be good.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah. So I think the awakening is just the beginning, actually, of the journey of awakening. Paradoxically, in the Dzogchen tradition, for example, there's the pointing out. Teacher points you to what's called the nature of mind, and then the journey begins there. So first awakening is the beginning of the journey of deepening, clarifying, and ultimately living from it from moment to moment. And it's possible you could wake up, and if there's no dedication to living from it, it could just fade into the background. That's definitely possible. So some kind of devotion to truth is what carries us along. So it's a lifelong journey. It isn't a one and done,
But have there been major, events might not be the right word, but since that first shift, have there been other major events for you that were definitely another
awakening? In fact, I think that the book that I'm writing now is tentatively called Endless Awakening, because I think it's an endless process, actually. I feel like I keep waking up. I'm constantly waking up, seeing new facets. It's almost like reality, the true nature of reality is like a jewel with multiple facets. And we can see throughout a lifetime, we can see it from many different perspectives and many different facets. So it's in a certain way very simple, but in a certain way very, very subtle and very complex. And so I felt, first of all, the initial awakening was kind of like receiving a zip file, like on your computer, you get a zip file, and then the file unpacks itself over time, and you see what was actually in the zip file. That one awakening, it was a powerful kind of shift, but it was also, there was a lot of, you could say, information or a lot of wisdom that was kind of condensed into that download that happened in an instant. It was like an immediate download, but I didn't know what I had downloaded. And then over a period of months and even years, I was constantly, oh, now that's what I realized. Oh, now I see. That took years, actually. So I often write about that, the zip file. Don't be surprised if that download unpacks over months and years, actually. I'd be driving in the car, I'd be walking along the street, and suddenly, oh, wow, now I understand that, and that, and that. So, it was quite a surprise, really.
Okay,
It was all there, but it wasn't apparent. It wasn't clear. And that's the clarification that I think happens over time.
Okay. And because I've read other teachers like Bernadette Roberts, I don't know if you happen to know her.
I interviewed her for the Yoga Journal many, many years ago.
Okay, because
The
she first, well, I didn't read her, it's more from hearsay talk about her, that she first thought that what she called the unity consciousness was the end state, you could say, but then she discovered there was more. And that she called the no self, or is there something like that in your experience, your unfolding of your awakening?
Well, I think awakening, in my experience, and the experience of many people that I've worked with, seems to have a particular trajectory. Not everyone, goes through the same trajectory, but the first stage of awakening, you could say the first stage is realizing you're not your mind. That's not quite awakening yet, but it's a big step. Most people think they're their minds, right? So if you've done meditation for a while, you start to realize, wow, there's this awareness, and then there's these thoughts, and they're not exactly the same. That's a big deal, right? And then I would say the next step is realizing that I am the awareness, not the contents. That's a major step. That's like a Kensho. That's like a major Kensho experience. I'm awareness, not the contents. That was really more or less what my awakening was, I would say. Although I think my awakening, like many awakenings, had all of it in it.
Okay.
But I didn't see it all at once, you see.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, I woke up out of being the content and realized that I was the context. I was this boundaryless awareness, which was, could not be located. There was no limit to it. It was vast and all-encompassing. That was what I was, and this little body-mind was just one of the many facets or expressions or arisings within this boundless awareness. But then I think there is the full, and if you read some of the non-dual teachings of Advaita, now of course what does non-dual mean? That's a whole involved conversation. But if you read some of Advaita, for example, like Ramana Maharshi, he would be saying that you are the I am, You are awareness aware of itself, what I call awakened awareness, free of the contents. In fact, he would say, and Advaita would say, that the world is an illusion, created by the mind, and there is only the I am, consciousness, boundless awareness in every direction. The world as we experience it is just an illusion, right? But there can be a subtle dualism in that, right? I am the I am and everything else is an illusion. Wait a second, that sounds a little dualistic. The one who is aware, this boundless awareness, is somehow separate from the manifestation, which is seen to be an illusion. Yeah, maybe. But then I think there's a deeper recognition, which would say that which is aware and that which it's aware of, form and emptiness, awareness and the objects of awareness, are not separate, are not two. A Tibetan teaching poem puts it, gazing with sheer awareness into sheer awareness. That which is looking and that which is looked at are inseparable. See, that's true non-dual realization. You recognize that the one who's looking out through these eyes and what's being looked at are not separate. In fact, there is no separate someone gazing out through these eyes. There's just this, the non-dual field, reality as it is, without a separate someone realizing it. Awareness is just one of the qualities of reality, you could say. I would say that's the deepest realization. So that one is living not as awareness, a separate awareness at all, but one is just living, life is just unfolding its own mysterious way, now. And you could say it's aware of itself. There's no separate someone being aware of it. Awareness and the objects of awareness are not two. That's, I would say, the deepest form of non-duality. Subject, object, not separate. Yeah. So I would say that's the trajectory of awakening. And over the years, it's gotten clearer and clearer and deeper. I think it was all contained in an initial realization, but ultimately, I think it's become clearer and clearer, the deeper nature. So for me, it was never a one and done at all. It's been a constant unfolding, and maybe I'm just slow,
Oh no, it's in line with a lot of I watch a lot of videos of Angelo de Lullo, and he also talks about this process that's going on and on, and he also and many other teachers as well, I think.
I think it helps to be really curious, huh? I think, above all, I think a wholehearted dedication to truth and a curiosity about what's really true, like a real dedication to knowing what's really true. I would say that's the most important thing,
And to not be satisfied with concepts, but really feeling into it. What does it really mean? What is it really?
Yeah, not even the most exalted concepts. It's not enough. You really want to know what's true. That's the most important thing. And I think that's kept me going. I'm definitely curious. I'm not satisfied with, I think in some way that's kind of an obsessive quality, but I'm a little obsessive about that. I really want to know, Maybe that's held me in good stead over the years.
What comes to my mind is, so in the awakening process, we are, that's how I see it. We are constantly letting go and even more letting go. So I was thinking about you fell in love sort of with Jean Klein.
I did, fell in love. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's true. I think falling in love with the teacher, falling in love with the truth is not necessary. But I think it takes us a long way, I wanted to be John Klein. I wanted to realize not be like him. Realize what he had realized. Actually, my first Zen teacher used to say the essence of transmission goes like this: be like me, don't be like me. So like be like me essentially, but don't be like me as a person, you know. So I wanted to be like him in the essential sense. I wanted to realize what he had realized. That was, he inspired me to want to realize what he had realized. Very important.
But was it then also an aspect of him that you had to let go?
Well, he
That you,
died after 10 years. I
yeah,
let go of
uh-huh,
the whole deal.
yeah,
I let go of the
yeah,
body mind completely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How was that then?
As he would say, as Romana would say, you know, I didn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
His presence was just as strong after he died as before he died. Except I couldn't be with him in person, but you know, I never lost the sense of his presence. It's always there, always available. Because it is our very own presence, right?
Yeah,
It's not separate.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I was thinking part of your part as was also becoming a psychotherapist. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Why did you also go that road, and how did you after
Right.
that integrate both the spirituality and the psychological part?
Well, you know,
Mm.
I think that psychology, Western psychology and Western psychotherapy are what we in the West have to offer to this non-dual, these non-dual traditions or this non-dual wisdom tradition. It's the piece that we get to offer, you know, because a lot of these traditions, even Buddhism, they're limited in understanding individual psychology. They have a generalized psychology. Buddhism has a very sophisticated psychology of mind, but not so much about individual psychology, developmental psychology, right? How we developed, how our conditioning affects us. And when I was a monk, one of the things that happened was I started seeing my conditioning getting acted out. I started seeing my, you know, my attachment and my anger and my fear and all these things coming up really strongly. And I didn't feel like meditation was helping all that much, you know. And then I also saw teachers acting in very unskillful and, in fact, abusive ways. I've written about this extensively.
Mm.
There's material on my website about this. My Zen teacher, Maizumi Roshi, who had affairs with his students and was an alcoholic, and you know, so I was, you know, it really threw me back. I thought, whoa, something's going on here, and that Buddhism and meditation are not addressing. So I left the monastery. I put aside my robes in order to go to graduate school in psychology, so I could understand better what was going on, right? Both my own psychology and in general. So I wrote a master's thesis on the teacher-student relationship in the Buddhist tradition, and I studied different psychotherapeutic techniques, and I was in a lot of therapy myself in order to try to understand my own conditioning, my own psychology, and in order to help people with theirs, huh? And so I continue to work with people on their individual psychology in the context of spiritual awakening, because conditioning, or core reactive patterns, core beliefs about ourselves and life, emotional reactivity, trauma in particular, make awakening more challenging, and particularly make it more difficult once we've awakened to live from that from moment to moment, because we keep getting hijacked. You know, that term emotional hijacking, which was coined by Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence, sometimes called amygdala hijacking.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah.
that place in the brain where the reactivity, the limbic system, we get very reactive. So even though we may have awakened and had profound experiences and know who we really are at a core level, you know, in the context of an intimate relationship, you know, when our partner or our kids or, you know, trigger us, we can get really reactive, right? Or emotionally reactive, and or core beliefs about ourselves that were deeply ingrained through childhood experiences. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. The world is not a safe place. I can't trust other people. I'm powerless. I'm helpless. These are some of the most popular ones. Take your pick, right? Or two or three, right? These condition us, and at a very deep core level, in parts of the brain, you could say that awakening doesn't even touch. So if you go into understanding where awakening happens, I think often awakening happens in the neocortex, but the awakening doesn't necessarily go down into the limbic system. I'm not an expert on the structures of the brain, but the frontal cortex is often talked about. Frontal cortex may be awake, but your amygdala may not be very awake. And how do you extend this awakening into these other parts of the brain? Or from a psychological perspective, how do we extend them into the parts of ourselves that have never received this illumination, the inner child or inner children, the parts that are trying to protect us, from harm, that are programmed to act in certain ways. How does the awakening extend to those? That's an interesting question, because I've met awakened people, including myself, who can become reactive less and less over the years. But still, it was amazing after having awakened to still be acting in ways that were not skillful, right? So that really spurred me to learn more about my own psychology and about the psychology of other people.
And what is your experience with what does help to integrate the awakening also into the amygdala or other structures?
I would say love, having a loving relationship to the different parts of our psyche, turning compassion inward toward ourselves, and becoming more and more aware of these different parts without rejecting them. Parts, for example, internal family systems, voice dialogue, ego state psychology, psychosynthesis, have all talked about there are parts of the psyche, inner child work, right? There are parts of the psyche. We have sub-personalities. It doesn't make us multiple personality. It just makes us complex, right? And I think that we can get in touch with, either through psychotherapy or on our own, these different parts and welcome them, embrace them, speak to them, listen to them, with love and compassion. I think love is the great healer, the great integrator. There's that wonderful Rumi poem, The Guest House, This human is a guest house, welcome and entertain all these parts of ourselves, the dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in to the guest house, welcoming all the parts of ourselves, right? This isn't emphasized enough, I don't think, in spiritual practice. We're taught to get the philosophy right, go directly to the core of the matter, in terms of insight. But once having had these profound insights, then what? I think that's where love has a very important role to play. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful that you mentioned that, because today we had a homily and fellowship time, and the welcoming was really a part of it, because a lot of us here have this welcoming practice to look at the I am bad belief, we call it, or the I am stupid belief, or and just welcome it and let it be there. And my own experience with it is, when I do that, I sort of become, I notice I am what welcomes, and that what welcomes is
it strengthens.
It is love. I think it just right. Accepts. It just has no problem with it.
Exactly. When you welcome as you say so beautifully, you become that which welcomes, which is love, which you already are, but it connects you with what you are. In the welcoming, it connects you with the love that you are, and it's beautiful. And so that welcoming, I think, is very important part of this whole spiritual journey. Often happens after awakening, actually.
Okay.
Loving these many parts. It can happen before, of course, but once
Yeah.
it makes it even easier to welcome because you're not as caught up in the content. You're not identified with the narrative, and there is a deep connection with who you really are, which is this boundless awareness, which is undisturbed by the content. And so from that place, it's easier to welcome, I would say. And, it facilitates that process, but you can do it before or after. Yeah. So it's a process of healing in the best sense, which is, of course, healing means to make whole, making whole, welcoming all of these parts to come home.
Yeah, and the healing is very much also a resting and not, you don't have to fix it.
You don't have to fix it. Exactly. It's not about fixing.
Yeah.
Because so much of the time we're trying to fix ourselves because we believe there's something wrong with us. There's never anything wrong, to appreciate our innate perfection, you could say. Our imperfect perfection, or our perfect imperfection. We're imperfect, completely imperfect, and yet completely perfect in our imperfection, right? It's that beautiful paradox. And to see that, it's often easier to see it in someone we love than it is to see it in ourselves. So if we can extend that same welcoming quality to ourselves that as we do to our partner or children or parents or close friends.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at the time. We are halfway. I think maybe would it be a good moment to do a little meditation? What do you think, Stephen?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure. Yeah. Do you have any? We talked about it. So let me do a little guided meditation, 5 or 10 minutes here.
Yeah, and then afterwards we can throw it open for questions for other people that are listening.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So let's sit quietly. Allow your body to settle. Comfortably. And you might want to close your eyes. And begin by noticing where your awareness is located, where it's positioned, where it's fixated. Not immediately trying to change it, just noticing it without judgment. And very often, for many, if not most of us, our awareness is located or fixated in the head, in the forehead. Thinking about things, trying to figure things out, So notice where awareness is fixated right now, located right now, and allow it to gradually move down out of the head. Of course, it may not have been in the head, but assuming it is, down out of the head through the neck and torso down into the chest. And become aware of, allow awareness to rest in the coming and going of the breath, the rising and falling of the chest and belly as you breathe. not from above, but being aware from inside the breath itself. And thoughts and feelings may come and go. They're not a problem. Meditation is not about getting rid of anything. Quite the contrary, it's about opening to what is. But if you get lost in thought, just come back to the breath. And now you can allow awareness to naturally expand and extend throughout the body. Awareness is by its nature open, expansive, all-inclusive, so just allow it naturally, no effort involved, to expand, to include the full range of sensations within the body. Very often, awareness is so localized that we forget we even have a body. It can be lovely just to sometimes allow awareness to extend fully throughout the body, from head to toe, being aware of all of it. Field of sensation. And then allowing awareness to extend beyond the boundaries, the arbitrary boundaries of inside and outside. Can you really tell what's inside and what's outside? Is there really a sharp demarcation at the skin, or is it really just one continuum, Inside, outside, one continuum of sensation, allowing awareness to extend and open front and back, side to side, top and bottom, opening infinitely in every direction. Just allow it to happen, no effort involved. It's really as much about letting go of any boundaries as it is about expanding, letting go of arbitrary boundaries, allowing awareness to take its assume its natural condition of boundlessness, openness. Above and below, back and forth, side to side, every direction. Let go of your fixation on the body, on the localization here in this particular body-mind, and be this boundaryless awareness, this global awareness, without location, without center, without limit. You are this space without limit, this boundaryless openness. Everything is happening in you. No need to exert any effort, nothing to do, nothing to avoid. Everything is taking care of itself, unfolding naturally without any effort on your part. Just rest as awareness and let everything be as it is. Thoughts and feelings that arise don't belong to you. Just let them come and go. No need to claim them. No need to get rid of them or avoid them. Just be a boundless space in which they're coming and going. Even the body-mind, which seems so solid, is just an appearance in what you are. Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you, Anja. So yeah, any questions?
Yeah, you can raise your hand, and I'll also look in the chat. I see a question, David. How do you think your practicing deepening before awakening changed your awakening?
Say again.
How do you think your practicing and deepening before awakening changed after your awakening?
Not sure I quite understand the question. You have?
David,
Yeah, go ahead, David. Let's hear from you, huh?
is David still here? Let me see if I see him.
Yeah, I don't really understand.
No, I think David has left.
Okay. Someone else have a question? Feel free to, there you go, Rhoda.
I had to actually write it down, so I'm just going to grab my note because I don't know that I remember it from that after that meditation. Here it is. So, I sort of heard you speak about the steps and sort of like, above all, there's a wholehearted dedication to knowing truth. And then the invitation was to get really curious because you really want to know what's true. And what I notice is mind wants to turn that wholehearted dedication into a job. And I'm not exactly sure that that's 100% not that it's a job, but more or less that it's a desire to actually know the truth requires some willingness to actually practice. So there is sort of effort, I'm going to say, effort towards that. So I would actually just love for you to share with me, what does that mean for you, a wholehearted dedication to truth?
Yeah, it's different for every person. And of course, there are many ways that each of us in our own unique ways can distort that. And, according to our unique personality style, and make it into a job or make it into something we're constantly resisting and struggling with, or, whatever it is. But basically, it's just about, when I say wholehearted, the word heart is involved, right? We need to really care, so it's not something, an assignment we give ourselves because we think we should. It's something we do because we really want to and we really care, In Zen, we used to say, you should practice constantly as if to save your head from fire. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. It's like the reminder about the evanescence of life, huh? How ephemeral it all is. Human life is so short. That's a motivating statement, huh? Life is, we're losing our loved ones, Very often we're driven to the path by loss, huh? My mother died when I was 15, and Dogen, the great Zen master, his mother died, I think, when he was 6, and he became a monk. The loss of people close to you, this drives us, right? So it has to come from the heart. I think that's the most important. We really care. And then, of course, the curiosity is part of that, but we're curious for a reason. We really want to know for a reason. Maybe we're still suffering, and we want to really get to the heart of the matter. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. It does make me wonder about the, speaking of suffering, I heard you say early on, that often people are driven to this path because there's a sincere sense of suffering, which made both David and I laugh. Like, okay, now we know we're in the right place because that's what's happening. That's what, drug you here in the first place.
Absolutely.
But as I hear you speak about wholehearted, I guess what I'm getting is there isn't any part that really wants something else more than this.
Well, there may be parts that want something else more than this, but I think you have to deal with those parts. You have to make peace with those parts. That's one of the things we do in the school is do some inquiry around this. What gets in the way, or what is the resistance? How do we self-sabotage? Again, not to make that wrong, but to see, since it's something we really want to do, because there are many different parts of us, but generally there's one primary part that really wants to wake up, and then there are other parts that are not so sure about it, resist it, are afraid of it. We're complex creatures, particularly in the West. I think traditional cultures like Tibet, for example, maybe medieval Japan or China, people were simpler, perhaps in a lot of ways. We've complexified our psyches. But to get in touch with that thread, that deeper thread of aspiration, you could say. I mean, I like the word aspiration. It's from the same root as inspiration and respiration. It's about the breath. It's very deep. It's very core. So something about this aspiration to awaken, letting that be the primary note, and letting the others, working with the others that may get in the way, But again, if you don't awaken, that's okay too. Or we're not saying you need to awaken, but if it's what you want, go for it,
Thank you, Stephen. Is it Stephen
Yeah.
or Stephen?
Stephen.
Sorry.
Stephen,
It is
thanks.
Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Rhoda. Yeah.
What
Yeah,
came to my mind, Stephen, what I read in your book about while you were a monk and you were sitting long days meditating, there came a point when you noticed this feels like working. Is it a little bit where Rhoda was also pointing to when?
I wouldn't mind working if I was getting somewhere.
Okay, you weren't getting
I
somewhere.
didn't feel I was
Okay.
getting anywhere. I
Okay.
felt it was, as I describe it, very dry, and there was no juice there, and there was no insight happening. And you remember I was doing that for years, and I wasn't getting the breakthroughs that I was told to expect. And maybe I always say I was the toughest nut, or as Anja Shanti likes to say, and I'm totally in the same boat. We were failed meditators. I think I was like a failed meditator. All that meditation didn't get me anywhere, so I had to stop meditating and meet someone like Jean Klein who said, "Don't make meditation a habit. The only reason to meditate is to wake up and discover who you really are." And so I stopped the meditation habit. I'd actually kind of fallen out of the habit by that time, but it was reassuring to hear that. But in terms of loss, I was thinking, the Buddha told the story of, there's a story told about the Buddha where a woman came to him crying about her lost baby. In fact, she had her lost baby in his arms and how horrible it was. And he said, go bring me a sesame seed from a house where no one has ever died. And she looked all over and could find no house where there was no loss like that. And she came back and she said, I realized I'm not alone. We all suffer. We all lose. She became a nun, right? So to realize that loss and suffering are inherent to the human condition, and there's no other way to avoid it. Watching Netflix won't do it. Getting addicted to alcohol or, drugs won't do it. None of these things are going to do it, right? What's going to do it? We have so many distractions in our world that we could spend our whole lifetimes trying to exhaust all the potential distractions before we realize that none of them are going to do it. When I teach, I talk about renunciation, and we think of renunciation as, a monk or nun goes and has their head shaved, or someone goes off to an ashram and devotes their life to God or to Krishna or to, but true renunciation is the recognition that nothing outside of me is going to make me happy. Renouncing the belief that anything outside of me is going to make me happy. That's renunciation.
Mm.
You know?
Thank you.
Because,
Yeah.
because it isn't.
No.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
I s-
Anne has a question? Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both. Thank you both so much. It's just a joy to be here with you. So speaking of renouncing the belief that anything outside of me will make me happy, I have a question about transmission. And I loved when you said we've complexified our psyches. And it strikes me that the notion of transmission and needing one and wanting one and hearing about it, can complexify the psyche and can make a belief out of, let me get to India, let me sit with Muji one more time, let me get to, name your favorite place, let me get to nowhere, right? And yet at the same time, like anything getting close to truth, here comes paradox, that there is something to transmission. There is something to it, but the something to it's not a thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't point to truth. It would point away from it. So that's about as many words as I can throw out the question, but I would love to hear your...
No, I think it's true. I think everything you said is true. And, the pathless path, as we may call it, is full of paradoxes. So yes, all of what you say is true, paradoxically. Of course, you can obsess about anything and turn it into an obstacle. The mind can do that, but I don't think wanting transmission, the aspiration to receive transmission, which really means the aspiration to wake up, is, as desires go, I think it's one of the best, and you're not seeking something outside of yourself, because transmission is only going to point you to what you already have and are, right? It's not going to give you something you don't already have. As long as you think transmission is something you're going to get from someone out there, then you misunderstand transmission, yeah? Jean Klein used to say, when the teacher who does not take him or herself to be a teacher meets the student who does not take him or herself to be a student, in other words, free of all roles, of all pretensions, of all identities, then true transmission happens. Yeah. Because there's nothing to transmit except what you already are. It's just a pointing to what you already are. And also, the trees are transmitting, the birds are transmitting, the sky is transmitting. You don't have to go to Portugal. Believe me. Just be available for the transmission that's always already taking place.
Yeah, I thank you, because as those words land, what the words that I can hear in my own mind come up is, when two or more are gathered, and that includes the trees, and that includes the sky, and that includes all of it.
That's right. There are always two or more. There are infinite number of beings always gathered in the name of truth. It's called reality.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
We just have to open to it, right? And of course, there's the paradox. How do we open? Again. Teachers have a role to play, but we become fixated on the transmission and the teacher, for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's why it's called the pathless path. There's nowhere to go, nothing to get. You already are here, exactly where you need to be, and yet, you haven't seen it yet. So until you see it, you're not fully home, right? That's the paradox, one of the many paradoxes. Yeah, Joseph.
Thank you, Stephen and Anja, for this time together. And I was reluctant to raise my hand so quickly after the exchange between you and Anne. I just kind of wanted that to soak in. I love the clarity that's coming through. I really, I guess because of where I'm at or my practices now, I really love the way you talked about the integration of Western psychology into Advaita and into non-duality. And I just, I appreciate you sharing that. And I look forward to investigating that a little bit more. The one thing I would ask is when you were talking about this on I guess, a little different path, when you were talking about your awakening, right, your initial awakening, oftentimes, we hear stories of people who have this shift, this kind of a major shift, and then there's an integration process that has to take place after that to kind of, but you were in your car driving, right? Is that right? So I'm just curious as to how that played out, because there was something in here that was like, no, you can't do that. You can't be in the car behind the wheel. It has to do with control now. As I hear that as I'm saying it out loud, it's like, well, who's driving the damn car then? If you're just awareness, like, who's driving the damn car? That sort of thing. That's kind of a goofy way of looking at it. But there was something in me that was like, no, you can't do that. You have to be sitting in somewhere where it's safe, and and I don't know if that's getting off track there, but was there a
Well,
real?
I think that's a misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
There's no one driving the car, but the car doesn't necessarily have to run off the road. The car is being driven by this body mind, which realizes itself as that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
If we couldn't drive cars once we wake up, then people probably wouldn't be so drawn to waking up, right? I mean, driving happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, I think there's some myths and misunderstandings about awakening. Like, it has to happen in a certain place at a certain.
Oh, Stephen, your sound is off.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, now it's back.
Now it's back. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. It seems to be toggling. I think we'll just go with this.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we have these.
Oh, yes, do it.
No.
Yeah. It's kind of in and out. Yeah.
But if I unplug it, it didn't work so well. So let me try. We only have 15 minutes, but let's see. Maybe this will be better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that better?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's try that. So anyway, yeah, speaking happens. Things go awry, and but yeah, we have these idealistic expectations about what awakening is about, but it's much more ordinary, I think, than we realize. Actually,
yeah,
we continue to function in very ordinary ways, and ultimately it gets very integrated. So there's nothing special. It's just everyday life, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You had mentioned demystifying awakening, which a lot of this talk is helped with that for me. Were there any areas in just your regular social life that you had to, like, there's a problem with integrating into that, or nothing? Just
no, it actually, again, it took me years. After waking up, I had a lot of fear come up, which is not uncommon, and went in and out of awakening for years.
Oh.
It was not an abiding place at all for me, actually. It was a very powerful awakening, but it was not stabilized for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that was the reality, So again, I think the expectation that it's going to be a one and done, or even that it's going to, have a lasting, transformative impact over an extended period of time, it can go into the background very quickly and still take a long time to integrate.
Yeah, the image or the analogy of the zip file that you used, I've never heard that in regards to awakening. I found it very helpful, very helpful. Like it was all there at once, but I forget your exact words. It took years for it to really appear. Unpack, yeah. It's beautiful.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So don't have any expectations about, what how awakening will impact you or what it will look like, or maybe you've already had some awakenings. But just be open to how it appears for you. I think generally when we do have an awakening, we know it. There's a kind of self-authenticating quality to it. We may not trust that it's complete or that it's whole or accurate, or we may want to investigate. We may want to go to a teacher to talk about it. But generally, when there's a genuine awakening, there's a sense of, wow, that's it.
Yeah.
Didn't last as long as I thought it would, but that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stephen, for sharing your time with us, and thank you, Anja, for facilitating this. Yeah.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, and I want to add in Stephen's book, he also writes a lot about the embodiment process of awakening. So that's all what this is about, I think.
Yes, very much the embodiment, the integration, as we've been calling it.
Yeah.
The embodiment. And the embodiment is a lifelong journey. I mean, moment to moment. You'll never complete it, because there's always... I interviewed Anja many I interviewed him for Tricycle magazine. They finally, I forget if they published it or not, but anyway, I interviewed him, and I was joined by the editor at the time, James Shaheen, and we asked, or I think James asked, do you think your awakening, your enlightenment is complete? He said, I don't know. He said, tomorrow I could wake up and it would be gone. What do I know? I thought that was a very honest answer. It's like, how do you know? I can't make any claims to it, So I think that's really accurate, There's never an enlightened person,
No.
The whole idea of an enlightened person is an oxymoron, huh?
Yeah. I want to add a quote. I found in your book that a bit relates to that. It says, you may find that you increasingly act from the heart and move from your gut rather than your thinking mind. It was on page, in the chapter about practice of presence.
Right.
Was it also, were you also talking about the embodiment here, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is that, we talked about the trajectory of awakening from waking out of the identification with the content thoughts, and then waking back in, you could say, to recognizing that which is aware and that which is aware of are not separate. There's just this. That's the one thing. Those are the stages. But there are also what I call dimensions of awakening. So very often people wake up here, but they don't wake up here in the heart or in the gut, And in fact, I was just talking to a friend who's also...
Oh,
I don't know what to... Yeah, I can't do anything about it. So just let me... Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure why it's doing this. Hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were talking about a well-known teacher of Advaita who said to my friend, who's a friend of his, he said he's just beginning to wake up in the heart. Someone who's been teaching it for like a dozen years at least. He's just his heart's just starting to awaken. Very interesting, right?
And what does he mean by that?
That's what we're talking about, the dimensions of awakening. You can wake up here. I am vast, open awareness, right? Boundaryless awareness, but your heart's still not open. And so then the awakening then descends into the heart, and you start recognizing the interconnectedness, the interbeing, the no separation with all of life at a heart level. That's a whole nother level than at the upper chakra level, at the awareness level. Huh? And then the deepest level, which is in the gut, you could say the lower chakras, is in the ground. You recognize that there's a deeper ground that unites us all. We all are rising from the same ground of being. Huh? That's that's the lower chakras. So head, heart, and gut are what you might call the dimensions or levels of awakening. Huh? So believe it or not, there are people who wake up in the upper chakras, but their heart isn't open yet.
Yeah. I sometimes get the idea that, well, I don't know if it's true, but that you could sort of hide in the absolute or in the higher spheres. Is that true or not?
Absolutely. In Zen, they call it the Zen sickness.
Okay.
Or what they call it nowadays is spiritual bypassing, right?
Yeah.
Spiritual bypassing. You're not, you understand. You've been illuminated. You understand the nature of reality. But, you're not very kind to other people. You're kind of oblivious.
Okay, is there someone else who wants to ask something?
More questions?
Raise your...
2 more minutes.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes.
Or we could just sit quietly.
I see Shauna's hand. Yeah, we can always sit quietly, but Shauna.
Thank you. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Shauna.
Hi. I read in your description that you studied under or with Adyashanti, who I just love dearly, and he gave you permission, asked you to go out.
Transmission. Uh-huh.
What was that experience for you, taking that mantle upon yourself?
Well, it was sort of just like very simple, really, just like a recognition that my practice, my study, my realization was complete, and I said that to him, and he said, "Yeah, I think you're right. I agree." So we exchanged poems, which you can read on my website. I finally, after many years, posted them on my website. The poems we exchanged, and then I went to visit with him, and we went to see his teacher, Arvis Jussi. We exchanged gifts. He gave me his bowls, his eating bowls, his monk's eating bowls, and I gave him a book signed by Nyogen Senzaki, one of the people who brought it.
Oh.
Simple. Yeah, it's very simple. It was just a recognition of what had already taken place. It wasn't an event in itself, I would say. But it was definitely an invitation to teach, which changed, really then set me on the path of teaching, Without that invitation, I don't know if I would have done what I've been doing. It was, the basis for really setting forth and, doing what I'm doing. It's not just my own trip here, It's part of a lineage, which makes a big difference,
Rhoda?
I know we only have a few minutes, and I really want to hear if you've got anything coming up. But before we do that, you said waking up to a heart level, and I just wonder if you would talk about that in just a tiny bit more detail.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Don't you?
I just noticed this mind gets very active about trying to tell me that that's not it. That's not it.
Right. I think I think you know. I would trust that. No more concepts really necessary. I think, it's like when to really be available to be touched, huh? To feel the intimacy with all things, huh? Not just in some abstract or spacious way, but, it's not about becoming detached. It's about becoming actually more easily touched by life, by other people, huh?
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Rhoda. Yeah. And thank you, everyone. Lovely to be together. I love the name of your organization, as I said to Anja, Awakening Together. Let's all awaken together, huh? Not just for our own benefit. It's not about me or you, it's about all of us, huh? Let's awaken together and spread it as far and wide as we can. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
So thank you, Stephen. And we are at the bottom of the hour. So yeah, this is the end of the satsang.
Thank you for watching our satsang. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to join us live, please remember you can do so by visiting our website at awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary. Again, our website is awakening-together.org. Remember to click the bell for more notifications and subscribe.